Do you have any idea whether this Tanya Medina was a co-defendant with anybody?
She was a co-defendant with the last case, Your Honor. This is a bit of a weird one. I'm going to be asking that we set a bond and that she be seen sometime next week because due to a clerical error, it was not filed but will be shortly.
Okay. Ms. Medina, there are no charges today, but it was a mistake that Mr. Garcia's case got filed, but yours didn't. I'm gonna let you sign a $50,000 OR bond. I'm gonna let you sign a signature bond to reappear at the courthouse.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask that you reappear on Wednesday, July 17th at 1:30.
Okay. And that's here in Butler?
Yes,
Okay.
at the courthouse. You're gonna be able to sign your own bond, but if you fail to appear, then they're gonna take judgment against you for $50,000. The
Okay.
courts are, and then you'll probably have a $50,000 surety bond you have to make, which would be hard to get out of jail. So just make sure you show up on the 17th at 1:30,
Okay.
and they will advise you of any charges and go through the case with you at that time.
Okay.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Butler County District Court, how can I help you?
Hello, my name is Michael. I'm watching your live feed right now from the courtroom, and this is Judge. Hold on just a second. I'll get you a name, unless you know. Jan Satterfield. Are you familiar with this person?
Yes.
Okay. I just watched a case pass across her desk where a woman came up out of the jail. The prosecutor apparently made some kind of mistake. The judge tells the woman that she has no charges against her and then sets a $50,000 bond for her. I'd like to talk to your chief judge, please.
You can't talk to our judges outside of the courtroom.
Well, I'd like to talk to somebody that can correct these serious issues. You have an individual who has no charges pending who is now on a $50,000 bond.
Let me put you on hold 1 second.
Thank you.
Thank you for holding. How can I help you?
Ma'am, my name is Michael. I'm watching your online court hearing, and I just witnessed something that's pretty disturbing. There's an individual who was brought in from the jail. The prosecutor admits that there's a mistake that's been made, that there's no charges pending against this person because it hasn't been filed yet. And the judge set a $50,000 bond.
At the recommendation of the county attorney's office?
Well, I'm not, the recommendation of the county attorney's office is going directly against how the court processes are supposed to be happening here. How can you set a bond for somebody who has no charges?
Because they didn't file before the 1:30 court date, but they are filing today from what I gather from watching this.
Well, ma'am, we don't get a bond for charges that may be filed someday. We get a charge.
It is their protection and to make sure that she comes back to court.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. I understand what you guys are trying to do, and I understand the reasons you're trying to do it.
Our office isn't represented by the judge, nor is it represented by the county attorney's office. We're not part of their office. The clerk's office, here in this office, we hold the official record. We're the neutral party.
I didn't ask to speak, ma'am. I didn't ask to speak to the clerk. I asked to speak to somebody who could address this issue before it gets out of hand.
But you called the clerk's office.
Ma'am, I called the Butler County District Court, and I spoke to the first person and explained.
The clerk's office. We're the Butler County District Court clerk's office. The county attorney is the one who files the case and has requested the bond. So, for example, let's say you were drinking and driving and you had an open container and no valid driver's license, and you got pulled over.
Mm-hmm.
obviously the officer is going to arrest you once he realizes that you have
Sure,
a DUI.
of course,
right?
of course.
Okay. So when it comes time, because certain laws are in certain states, let's just say, for example, in Kansas, you have to be in like the drunk tank for like 12 hours before you can bail out, right?
Okay.
You would get a bond. And if it's in the middle of the night, there's no one here at the county attorney's office nor at the clerk's office to file that case. So if you are in jail and you don't have a case against you at that time, you still have to bond out. And it gives you a court date to come back.
Did the
And then
arresting,
by the time you,
ma'am, hasn't the arresting officer already filed the charges?
but you can't file the charges in the middle of the night when the offices are closed. Those are not, just because he arrested you for drinking and driving and like open container and yada, 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 doesn't mean a case is filed against you. It just means you are arrested for suspicion of doing something wrong and you're bonding out of jail.
Mm-hmm.
Your bond is guaranteeing you that you're going to come back to that next court date. That being said, this is kind of the same thing. They've arrested her. They're allowing her to bond out, but they're setting her on that bond. They're giving her a court date to come back at.
I understand all that.
So that's what they're doing. That's the exact same thing.
Ma'am, the dilemma that I have here is a charge has to come before the bond.
But she did get charged. She was arrested for burglary.
No, as you just told me a moment ago that the officer doesn't file the charges, he files something saying that she's suspected. The district attorney or the county attorney was responsible for filing those charges.
Nobody is found guilty until they're at the end
No.
of their hearing.
Yes, I understand
right?
that. I understand that, ma'am. But
it's under suspicion,
court
right?
court
So
procedural,
you're arrested for DUI or you're arrested for burglary,
ma'am.
right? You're not found guilty at that time,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Okay. So you have to go through your court process,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So she has to bond out of jail
Ma'am.
to come back to court.
No, let's pause there. We have to go through the court process. And the process,
Absolutely. That's why she's coming back to court.
the judicial process is that we get charged and then we have a bond set pending on that charge.
But there are plenty of people who bond out of jail without coming to court first. They get a court date on their bond.
Well, you know, it's interesting.
That's when their first court date is.
I understand that that's the way
Clearly you don't understand how
Ma'am.
the judicial system works, and I feel like if you would just...
Ma'am, if you can bear with me for just a moment, I understand that there's a misunderstanding between us somehow. Okay, but I want to give you the example of Elk County, Kansas. They have a sheriff down there that requires you to submit your ID to be scanned and checks for wants and warrants before he'll even come out and talk to you in the foyer. They all think that's completely legal and acceptable, and that's how it's been done down there for years. They're learning now that they can't do that. And what I'm trying to do is let you guys know that there is something happening here that is not judiciously correct, because you are setting a bond when there hasn't actually been an actual case filed. There are pending charges
Okay, so
there
let me
based
ask
on the
you this.
officer's arrest, but there's
Okay,
not an
let me ask
actual
you this.
case.
So when someone breaks the law in the middle of the night, and that person is allowed to bond out, do you not set a bond? You just say, okay, we arrested you, now we'll let you go?
Ma'am, when you come for your first appearance, the charges need to be filed.
Absolutely, but she
Thank
was
you.
just arrested. And that's why they're filing the case today.
When was the arrest?
They're setting a bond. I'm not sure, you'd have to call the jail.
So you don't know that she was just arrested. You just said that to me, that she was just arrested, but you don't really know that, do you?
Well, she wasn't on the booking sheet yesterday. She was on the booking sheet today, which means it happened sometime yesterday afternoon or first thing this morning.
Okay, so I don't necessarily need to call the jail then. You have the booking sheets there.
I do, but they're not public information. You can call the jail.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Have a good day.
I can't